In this video, we're going to discuss evaluating algebraic expressions. So evaluating algebraic expressions, really not that big of a deal. The biggest thing that students mess up on or have problems with is the actual substitution of the values into the variables. So the first example we have here is going to be negative 5w plus 15 plus 4y. We've got a couple of variables, a w and a y. And we've got values for these variables. We're going to say w is 3 and y is 4. So whenever we substitute these values in for the variables, we must always use parentheses. So this negative 5, my value for w is 3, so I'm going to put 3 in parentheses here. We do this for a couple of reasons. One, because now what does this look like? Well, we've seen multiplication problems look exactly like this. Because when numbers are in parentheses and right next to each other, we know that we're going to multiply. The other reason is, and I've seen many students do this, is that without these parentheses, they put them right next to each other. A lot of students think, oh, negative 53. That's definitely not what we want to do. These numbers need to be multiplied because when we go back to the original term, this negative 5w, these are factors. They're being multiplied together. So we can't lose that multiplication whenever we plug the values in. It has to remain. So negative 5 times w is the same as negative 5 times the value that w is, which in this case is 3. So when you're substituting values into the variables, always use parentheses. Okay, so we're going to continue, and this plus 15 comes down for the ride, and this plus 4, and the value of y is 4. So I'm going to use parentheses and put that 4 in there, so 4 times 4. So right now it looks like we just have order of operations, and we're going to multiply and multiply. So negative 15 is what negative 5 times 3 equals. And this plus 15 keeps coming along for the ride, and 4 times 4 is 16. So now it's just addition from left to right. Negative 15 plus 15 is 0. And then 0 plus 16 is 16. So the answer to our first example is just 16. Okay, let's do another one. We'll call this guy example 2. And this time we're going to have 4x plus 2xy minus 3y. And I'll put a little semicolon separating our values from our actual expression that we're using. The value of x, let's call it negative 2, and the value for y, let's call it negative 1. Okay, so now it looks like we have our expression. We've got some x's and some y's, but that's cool because we know the value for x and y. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in negative 2 in for x. So I'll have 4 parentheses negative 2, since that's my value for x, plus 2 times, and actually here we have 2 times x times y, so I'm going to need to make sure I use all these values and put them each in parentheses respectively. So this x gets a negative 2, this y gets a negative 1, and each one goes in parentheses, denoting that we're going to multiply all of these together. Minus 3 times y, and the value of y again is negative 1, and again the negative 1 goes in parentheses. I can't stress enough that when you substitute values into these variables, you must use parentheses. So again, now it just looks like a matter of order of operations, which I have a few multiplications here to deal with. So our first multiplication is 4 times negative 2, which will give me a negative 8. The next one is 2 times negative 2 times negative 1. So we'll do one at a time. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. So it's going to be plus a positive 4, or just plus 4. The last one is minus 3 times negative 1. So we can tackle this a couple of ways. I'll go the long way so you can see all the work. A minus 3 times negative 1. Well, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And then I notice I have these two minus signs right next to each other. So really this is going to be a plus 3 whenever I do that next step. So now let's take it one at a time. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. And negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So really this is no different than order of operations. Again, the biggest thing is just whenever you're substituting your values into the variables, you must use parentheses and work accordingly. Okay, let's do one last example. So we'll call this example 3. And we'll do something with fractions just to make things a little interesting. We're going to say 4b plus 3c minus, let's say, b squared. Okay, and here's my semicolon to separate my expression from my values. I'm going to say b equals, let's say 3/4, and c equals, I don't know, let's say negative 2/3. Okay, so again we're going to take the value for our variables and plug them in. So 4 times b, and b is 3/4, plus 3 times c, and c is negative 2/3, minus b squared, and again b is 3/4. So I'm going to put this 3/4 again in parentheses and square it, and that's how you would do that, because even though there's a negative out front and a square behind, the 3/4 is still going to sneak in here into the parentheses for the value of b. So yet a third time we just have an order of operations. So order of operations dictates that we do exponents before multiplication. So let's go ahead and take care of this. When we square a fraction, and I'll kind of put this over on the side, really what we're doing is saying 3/4 times 3/4, because we're multiplying it by itself. So what that's going to be is 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. So it's actually minus a 9/16. Okay, now that I've done that, let's go ahead and do this multiplication and bring them each down, because they don't affect the exponent here. So 4 times 3/4, we can put this 4 over 1, and oh look, these 4's cancel out. So really it's just 1 times 3, so I'm going to put 3. And here I have 3, so 3 over 1. Oh, our 3's cancel again. That's really nice. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but that's okay. Makes life nice that way. So 1 times negative 2 makes minus negative 2, and so it's plus a negative 2, so I'm just going to say 3 minus 2, and then minus our 9/16 that we had. So now it's just an order of operations, addition and subtraction from left to right. So 3 minus 2 is 1. So 1 minus 9/16. We'll get common denominators here, and our common denominator will be this guy right here, 16. So this 1 will actually turn into 16 over 16, which is a whole, because that's what we came from, what we started with was a whole. So 16 minus 9, now that we've got common denominators, is 7, and then the 16's stay, because that's our common denominator. 7 over 16 is our final answer, and this will not reduce, so we're good to go. So the biggest thing, and the thing that I would say to encourage you the most, is just to make sure that you always use parentheses when substituting values in for the variables.